Uh, Hello, I'm Dil Hildebrand at Pierre-François Ouellet Art Contemporain for my show In the Outside. The name of the exhibition is meant to sort of point to this distinction between the two things. What is exterior, what is nature, what is elsewhere, what is in the distance, versus what is here, what is now present in the foreground, All of the landscape elements in the distance are, as I said earlier, taken from landscapes in Manitoba. I collect these photographs of places I travel to and oftentimes use them in the work. So you can see here it's sort of rendered in this blur in the distance because I'm trying to sort of acquire this sort of, I guess you'd call it a depth of field, where the background is sort of visually in the distance by virtue of that blur, and then things come into much sharper contrast, and then thereby sort of come forward in that way. These cartoon elements, I guess you might call them, where things are sort of contoured in black line. That's part of the whole depth of field, I suppose. Things come forward when they have sharp outline. And so part of it is just for that reason. Another reason that I use the white, I use quite a lot of white, especially in the foreground elements. I like it as just a sort of a pure sort of base color. I mean, some people might not even think of white as a color, but it kind of, for me, just represents sort of the potential of there's an emptiness to it. It could be colored. And so you have these white elements or off-white elements in the foreground, and then it's punctuated by these sort of passages of sort of more, I would say, searing color, these kind of yellows and greens. So again, it's that contrast that I'm trying to build, that kind of, there's a kind of a drama, it seems to me, in the transitions from white into strong color like this. Seems to many that there's collage elements in the painting, but there aren't really literally collage elements, although I do use collage in the creation of it. So you see these white passages and off-white and the black line and contours everywhere, which gives the appearance of collage. I suppose that's largely because I'm using collage while I'm making it. I pin sheets of sort of shapes cut out of white paper onto the painting just to sort of sort out the composition. So it's part of the creation process, I suppose, to use collage to sort out things, to sort of work out potential ideas, to place things properly and whatnot. So yeah, those, once I take that paper off of the canvas and then I record, the idea with paint itself. So yeah, collage is a strong part of the creation, if not in the final product. But yeah, it helps me sort of compose a composition where I can sort of maybe have a little bit more control over the planning of things by sort of seeing it beforehand, before the paint actually hits the canvas. Consequently, you get a lot of these little drop shadows, or what you would call a drop shadow, basically the shadow created by light hitting the paper. Once I take it off of the canvas, I have to actually put those shadows in myself. So those are all painted. That's probably why, looking at a photograph of the painting, you might think that there are collage elements on there, but not the case. Another thing about the paintings is that you might notice that I don't really paint figures into the paintings. I never really have. For me, I like the idea that the person standing in front of the painting kind of becomes the figure. Having sort of created this theatrical scenario, the implication is that there should be actors on the stage, I suppose. And so, not having given any figures in the paintings, the rationale for me is that, the viewer, person standing in front of it, becomes that actor, so to speak. The sculptures that I made that are in the exhibition, there's 3 sculptures. They're very figural. They're kind of vertical format on plinths here in the exhibition space. They sort of stand in for the figures, I suppose. Although they're not very human, there are abstract and representational elements in the sculptures. There's some drapery, sort of like statuary, I guess you might think, and then a number of abstract sort of shapes and boxes and other kinds of odd things accumulated there, and they're all covered in plaster. I think of them as being the figures that aren't that aren't in the paintings. They kind of point to that absence that exists in the two-dimensional work.